not the music, but I really suggest, if you're bored, if you're not bored, if you're having a little bit of nostalgia or you want to know a little bit about your favorite show, cartoon, whatever, definitely watch Channel Frederator because they have the 107 facts. And I would say like the first 10 are kind of like no shit facts, but after that it is really fantastic. You'll find out some information that you couldn't have dreamed of, like what's it called? Zootopia. It turns out that like when Judy, the rabbit, first enters the city and she's walking around enjoying things, actually every single character in the background, no matter how much they were shown, had their own backstory. Like, not just a little like, oh, this person has this going on. Like, if they wanted to make a spin-off, that person has their own very complete, very full backstory that they can jump to at like a moment's notice, which is like very well thought out. And also the entire backstory of how Zootopia was made, like what cities they researched, how they went to different countries to study how the animals live together. It's really fascinating. It's a free YouTube channel, which is kind of fantastic. Hopefully someday they're gonna find my request hidden in the archives of video calls, and we'll be playing 107 Facts of the Pirates of Dark Water. Unfortunately, it got cancelled before all of the treasures were found, but if you manage to find the last episode that was created, it took so long for the characters to find all of the pieces that warded off the dark water that it actually hatched into a sentient creature. So the series was supposed to deal with, these pieces of stone or gems or whatever were supposed to be plunged into this dangerous dark water to ward it away from certain areas and eventually get rid of it. What do you do when it's a living creature? And I believe the one that they showed was more dragon-like. So even Game of Thrones showed that dragons are very, very big creatures. You don't hold it in one hand, so if all the characters were to find these creatures, even handling them briefly would be quite a task. And maybe someday that will be a show that nostalgia will bring back. That I hope for, and Thundercats. I don't think you could have escaped the 90s without at least knowing the theme song behind Thundercats, which wasn't as good as the theme song led it to be, but everybody watched it. It was on Cartoon Network. It was a thing. It had anthropomorphic cats. I think it led to the birth of 1,000 furries. It was like when Ninja Turtles got old, we turned to Thundercats, I think. Oops, not mine. I'm almost done cutting her out of the background. I'm going to darken and grunge it up a little bit so she matches it a little bit more. Because right now it kind of looks like I cut her out of one magazine and put her in another, which is basically what I did, but we'll try and fix that. I wanted to choose easier people to work on this week rather than the excessive cutting outing that I had to do in the past few weeks. Not excessive, it was just a little bit long and not very interesting to watch. if you have an Audible account and you're feeling a little bit bored and you're a fan of D&D, you might want to look up NPCs by Drew Hayes. It is actually a really funny book. Um, Basically, it's about both sides of a D&D game. It's not really ruining anything for you by telling you in, I believe it's chapter 1, that the main characters are not the players, but in the world of NPCs that they are playing in. And neither side realizes that the other exists. The players don't realize that they're playing within an actual world, and the NPCs don't realize that people don't know they exist. They think they're, the only world, and they're very confused by the adventures that kind of stumble through their world on a regular basis. And it's really funny. They toss some tropes on their head, and I really appreciate the humor. Male Drew, not a female Drew, turns a few tropes on their head, which is enjoyable. That's kind of done in the beginning chapters. They do deal with leveling up and experience points, and he states it in a way that makes sense for the stories, makes sense for the NPCs to have it to talk about. And I don't know how many times I've listened to it. I re-downloaded it because, like I said, my recent obsession was the Scott Sigler story, and I finished that so quickly. I am out of Audible credits at the moment, so I want to listen to something older while I wait, instead of just buying a new Audible credit. I mean, technically these are permanently mine. I don't want to get rid of them, so I'll just re-download them. The only thing I don't re-listen to is Game of Thrones, because I can't stand that 90-year-old guy trying to play a 15-year-old girl. It's kind of awful to listen to. And, I can't for the life of me think of his name. Oh, Roy Dotrice. See? I lied. Roy, I'm sure you're a nice guy, but oh my god. Please don't read the future books. Books, whatever. I beg of you. I think I'm gonna replace that with some factors. I'm not saying, don't buy the Game of Thrones audiobooks because the narrator's horrible. No, that's exactly what I said. The narrator's kind of horrible. He not only changes the pronunciation of many characters' names midway through a chapter, he'll sometimes change it in dialogue. And in book 5, Arya kind of becomes Irish and has an accent when she didn't in his previous narrations of the book. And if you think about it, you're listening to, 20 plus hours of a person narrating a piece of literature. You gotta make sure that you enjoy it. So I really suggest anything by, I don't remember the character, or the author's name. Gonna fire up Audible really quick. Roger Wayne. He's the one that does NPCs, and he does a fairly good female voice. Um, and I understand female voices are hard. They can be high pitched. Um, they can be sultry, and not everybody can do it. Sorry, Roy, that's not your particular talent. I'm gonna leave the edges for now. I wanna potentially have brass poking out, growing through the wall. Save as Photoshop to preserve the layers. So I hate to lose all this. Emma Galvin, who narrated the Olite books, she did okay with the men, did very, very well doing many different females. Scott Sigler, he narrated some of his own books. You get used to him. Sorry to say, I mean, he's an amazing writer. Not so much voice actor, but not holding it against him. James Langdon, I really liked him. He's the one who did the voice acting for The Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences. That is my favorite steampunk novel. If you don't know what steampunk is, I don't know how you found me. Many people call it Victorian science fiction. Many people call it many things. I guess a way I would like to describe it is kind of stealing from the X-Men movie, is kind of a Days of Future Past. It is, future or technology of the future, but with, elements from the past. Kind of making airplanes and the like with what we had in the Victorian era. I am a very big fan of steampunk. I have been for a couple of years. I accidentally found it one day. No. I actually found it at the back of a Mix magazine. Back in like 98. When I was reading Steam Boy. I don't know if anybody knows what Steam Boy is now, but it was a manga about a genius detective who lived in a society where everything was powered by steam. And obviously I was intrigued by it. I mean, I never heard of anything being powered by steam in such a way. Like, I was old enough to know about, not quite the Victorian era, but